Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy, Boulanger, and up next on the GM, 8 reasons why Lamar Jackson should be the MVP. Do me a quick favor, hit like. If it is your first time checking out the GM, hit subscribe. Also, hit the notification bell so that you get updates when we upload new content. Let's talk about it. So, with 2 games left, Lamar Jackson has emerged supposedly as the leader in the MVP race. There are 5 guys who are supposed to be in contention for this award. Those guys are Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, Tua, and Brock Purdy, who fell from the perch last night. And I would say all of these guys have a legitimate chance to take home the award. But Lamar Jackson, based on the 8 unorthodox numbers I'm going to give you, should take home the MVP crown once again. Reason number 1, 15 of 15. 15 of 15 is a representation of 15 games possible, 15 games played. The reason why this number is important is simply because the Baltimore Ravens being at the top of the AFC is not a real surprise, seeing as how in 2021, before Lamar Jackson went down, where were the Ravens? At or near the top. In 2022, before Lamar Jackson went down, where were the Baltimore Ravens? At or near the top. So when Lamar Jackson is healthy and available, the Baltimore Ravens are consistently at or near the top. And so for them to be at or near the top after 15 games played, that's not a surprise. But what is a surprise for a lot of people is that Lamar Jackson has played all 15 games, which was a big question for all of the media pundits coming into the season. And he has stood the test of time, held his own, handled his business, and he has been available. So that's reason number 1. Why? Well, they always say the best ability is availability. The number 2 reason why Lamar Jackson should be the right now leader for the MVP is 0. 0 is the number of running backs that Lamar Jackson will have to break the 1,000-yard mark. Why 1,000 yards? Well, 1,000 yards typically is the mark set league-wide to establish or identify a dominant run game or at least a number 1 type running back. The Baltimore Ravens will have 0. In fact, Lamar Jackson sits at about 750 plus yards, which means he leads the Baltimore Ravens again in rushing, not by intention, but by need, which elevates his value as the MVP. The number 3 reason why Lamar Jackson should be the leader and win the 2023 MVP is 0. No, this is not a replay. 0 is the number of wide receivers that Lamar Jackson will have at his disposal that will go over 1,000 yards. Why 1,000? Well, 1,000 yards is typically the marker that's set league-wide to identify a number 1 type wide receiver. The Ravens will not have one of those on this roster this year, which again further validates Lamar Jackson's value and what he has to do to make things work offensively for the Ravens. Reason number 4 why Lamar Jackson should win the 2023 MVP is the number 0 once again. 0 represents the number of Pro Bowl weapons Lamar Jackson will have at his disposal for this season and its remainder. The 5th reason why Lamar Jackson should be the 2023 MVP is the number 5, which represents 5 wins over the NFC. Lamar Jackson beat the Arizona Cardinals. He beat the Los Angeles Rams. He beat the Seattle Seahawks. When Detroit was rolling and at the top of the food chain in the NFC, he beat up on them. And then the NFC brought us their best in San Francisco, and he beat up on them too. So when you have dominance over an entire conference, That again highlights and elevates your value as the MVP. The number six reason Lamar Jackson should be the 2023 NFL MVP is 3,300. 3,300 is the number that represents the most passing yards he's had in his career. In his MVP season, which a lot of people are trying to compare this season to, he had a little over 3,200 yards, if I remember correctly. Lamar Jackson sits at over 3,300 with 2 games remaining, which means he will far exceed that number, which again elevates the importance of his availability and his effectiveness as the NFL MVP. The seventh reason Lamar Jackson should be the 2023 NFL MVP is the excessive amount of success he's had against top five competition. What do I mean by top five competition? Top five edge rushers, top five safeties, top five linebackers, top five defensive fronts, top five defenses as a whole. When you look at who Lamar Jackson has faced, when he's faced them, and how he's performed against them, you will see that he's handled them all, which is what has put the Baltimore Ravens at the top of the AFC, the best record in the entire league, is being able to handle his business against top five competition. The eighth reason Lamar Jackson should be the NFL MVP for 2023 is going to be a collective summary where I deduce each of his MVP competitors. Let's start with Christian McCaffrey, who seems to be right behind him. Christian McCaffrey has been a beneficiary of five great factors. One, the best play caller in the league, a Pro Bowler in Deebo Samuel, a Pro Bowler, All Pro Hall of Famer in Trent Williams, a really good number two wide receiver in Brandon Ayuk, and then also another MVP candidate who is his quarterback in Brock Purdy. So when you put all of those together, Christian McCaffrey, who is a great player, has no choice but to be great. All right. When you take Brock Purdy, who fell off the perch last night, he benefits from those same factors that Christian McCaffrey benefit from. A Pro Bowl left tackle, Pro Bowl wide receiver, the best play caller in the game, a Pro Bowl candidate and running back in Christian McCaffrey, and a really good second wide receiver in Brandon Ayuk, and not to mention a Pro Bowler in George Kittles. You see, so when you look at those factors, they have so much support. They don't have a choice but to be great. All right. Let's jump down to Tua. Tua Tagovailoa is a beneficiary of having a really good play designer in Mike McDaniel, excuse me, and playing with the best wide receiver in the entire league in Tyreek Hill, and maybe having a number two wide receiver in Jalen Waddle, who could be in competition for a Pro Bowl bid this year. So Tua should be being great when you have two elite level wide receivers in their own rights. All right. Tyreek Hill benefits from the same thing. Tyreek Hill benefits from an MVP candidate, dark horse, but an MVP candidate in his quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa. He does benefit from a great play caller in McDaniel. He does benefit from having a second Pro Bowl level wide receiver in Jalen Waddle. How do we know Jalen Waddle could be a Pro Bowl level wide receiver? Well, last week, not this week past, but 2 weeks ago, basically, when Tyreek Hill was out, did we see Jalen Waddle go off and him and Tua connect and drop 30 points on a good Jets defense? We absolutely did without Tyreek Hill, which accentuates Jalen Waddle's value and playmaking ability. So now when you take Tua and Tyreek Hill and you consider what they're working with, see, when you talk about MVP, I'm not denigrating or taking away from the benefit that you have to playing with people, but When you're playing with that level of player, you have no choice but to be great if you have a skill set that makes you great. So then when we come right back down to Lamar Jackson, let's look at what we talked about. Lamar Jackson does not have a Pro Bowl wide receiver. He does not have a Pro Bowl running back. He does not have a 1,000-yard rusher. He does not have a 1,000-yard receiver. Heck, he doesn't even have his Pro Bowl tight end who we lost in Mark Andrews several weeks ago. So he's actually playing with two backups at the tight end position. His offensive line has been hit or miss on the tackles all year long. Ronnie Stanley has been inconsistent all year long, has missed games. Morgan Moses has missed games, have been inconsistent all year long. The left guard in John Simpson has been inconsistent and all year long. He's been good, but a lot inconsistent all year long. His wide receivers have had issues with drops and things of that nature. So when you look at what Lamar Jackson is working with in order for the Baltimore Ravens to be a 12-3 team, you have to have Lamar Jackson be Lamar Jackson with or without all of those other excuse me, with or without all of those other integral parts. Here's a question. Let's walk it. Let's walk them all. Let's walk all the way down. Could Brock Purdy be Brock Purdy without Debo Samuel or Christian McCaffrey? Probably not. Could Christian McCaffrey be as productive without Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk taking the pressure off? Probably not. Could any of them make it work without having a Pro Bowl, All Pro, Hall of Fame left tackle in Trent Williams? Probably not. Excuse me. Let's jump to Tua. Could Tua be Tua without Tyreek Hill? No. Could Tyreek Hill be Tyreek Hill without Jalen Waddle? Maybe, but not as much. He probably, if you didn't have Jalen Waddle drawing coverage, Tyreek Hill may not be on pace to break 2,000 yards. You probably wouldn't have Tua Tagovailoa over 4,000 yards passing. You see, so everybody's been able to benefit from everybody. Lamar Jackson has had to just kind of duct tape and super glue everything together and keep balling. You got to think Lamar Jackson lost his number one wide receiver early in the season in Odell Beckham. If Odell was the number one, Rashad Bateman missed games, who was the number one last year, right? Zay Flowers had a drop off 3 games straight. Lamar Jackson did lose J.K. Dobbins early in the season. So Lamar Jackson has been making it work and leading his team the way he has with a lot of missing parts. So when you talk about most valuable player, it don't have to be most valuable player who is a quarterback. You just have to look at the most valuable player. If you take Lamar Jackson off the Ravens are a number one uh, lottery pick in this year's draft. But because you put him on, they're the best team in the league. I think he's the MVP. I'm out.